Welcome to Future Talks. My name is Sturesson, founder of Resting, a C-suite consultancy firm with the tagline Advice from the Future. I'm also a former global leader of PwC, government and public sector. Today, I have welcome on board here Mr. Professor Leif Edvinsson.
Thank you.
The first international professor of intellectual capital. And we're going to talk today about a very special topic, knowledge navigation. So that was why I was saying welcome on board. So we're now here on a kind of a ship. I would say when you listen to this word, knowledge navigation, what is the most crucial things to bear in mind when you start to navigate?
To be on the edge.
To be on the edge.
Yeah.
So where is the edge located then?
It's on the top of the wave.
Top of the wave.
And as the Earth is rotating, we are continuously exposed to new waves.
Yeah.
And it could be information waves as well as water waves. But the point is I learn to be on the edge, because otherwise you don't have the power of the wave.
How have you learned to be on that edge?
By being a student in Berkeley.
What happened there?
Well, what happened, a lot of things happened.
Of course.
But most of all, I learned to think.
Mm.
I learned to think on the question and the way of thinking. And this is fundamental. We have too much of recycling of information that is given by news media instead of how do we make a smart interpretation of this to be on the edge.
Yeah.
And the world is big,
Yeah.
and we are in a kind of competitive race as well, and we are in a peace race, and that's why we have to learn to think much more out of the box.
So that means that we should not look so much look upon the old knowledge. We should try to invent new ideas and knowledge and try to apply them into the daily reality.
If that is possible.
Yeah.
It might be reshuffling as well.
Reshuffling, okay, yeah, moving around the different knowledge units.
Yes.
Yeah, a new combination of knowledge.
Like ice hockey.
Ice hockey, yeah. We have to go there the puck will come.
Yeah.
Not there it has been.
Right.
All right.
And where it will come.
Where it will come, right. I was a goalie in ice hockey, so I was
then
just standing there and waiting and try to pick it up.
Right.
But I was saying, linked to this navigation metaphor, position, I understand, while taking my degree of being able to drive a boat, you need to understand position when you navigate. What would you say defines today's position when you talk about intellectual capital and knowledge? Where are we and how should we know where we are, literally?
It might be that we are not anymore where we were a few seconds ago.
We're moving.
Yeah, we are on a continuous move. And some people have been building fortresses around your position, about your job or title, etc.
Yeah.
But actually the edge is in that movement. And you learn that in ice hockey as well. You make an anticipation of where the puck is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And it's the same in tennis. You have to learn to be a few seconds ahead of reality.
Or microseconds.
Yeah, of microseconds.
Yeah. So that is to catch the moment, even of the future now, and get ready to move to catch that. Could it be knowledge units coming to you, and then you have to interpret these weak signals or knowledge pucks coming in your face, basically. It comes in you. So then, as a goalie, you had the mask. You try to protect yourself. So I'm thinking in today's society, there's a lot of fear, and we try to protect ourselves for the fear. But what would you say if you use metaphor of knowledge? How should we then think about? I mean, fear management could be a good way of explaining a lot of things, but what's the alternative?
Fear management is too affluent of today, actually, because it looks like media is picking up the fear instead of the trust.
Trust.
And the trust dimension is actually you have the courage to move. And most people in the situation of fear, they stand still.
Okay.
And then it's lost.
Yeah.
Because the Earth is rotating, as we have said earlier. The speed of rotation is about 1600 kilometers per hour,
Yeah.
which means that you are actually lost in the very second. You are not doing anything.
Yeah. So that means you say trust, that would go from fear management to trust management. That means if we we be having trust, we can move on. And that takes me to the second point of navigation. If the first one is position, the second one is direction. So how do we find the right direction to the future when we try to navigate and try to interpret all these signals? What would you say?
The direction is in the zero. It's in the open space.
Open space, yeah.
And that's why you have to open your eyes to see the open space, or in the zero. And that's where you have a free flow. And that is, in most organizational theories, yesterday.
Okay. So we need then to have an open flow. We need to accept that then my understanding and interpretation of what you say is that knowledge is actually flowing.
Yeah.
So should we try to receive it, or should we try to chase it?
Or something else.
Or something else. There are multiple options.
Yes.
To go into, could I also call this opportunity spaces, or in between spaces?
Absolutely. It's
between sectors, industries, issues, functions, maybe.
Yes, and perhaps most intriguing is the authenticity.
Authenticity.
How do you play the role of being in that space instead of being in the history?
Yeah. Okay.
Or museum.
Yeah, and that so then we have to create a museum of the future to be in that space.
Yeah.
But how do we be in authenticity? But when we today have, as many say, the future is really the artificial intelligence, not the authentic intelligence. So how do we mix these two into a new reality of learning and visions for the future? What would you say?
Well, I think you touched upon the best solution for the moment, and that is the authenticity, that you learn to play with the quantum physics, the new types of knowledge that could be helping us to understand the weak signals, see the patterns, and perhaps develop the new life science. For example, how do you develop a scissor for the genes?
Yeah.
Which you can't see, but you know that they are there and they are very important. And consequently, you develop a scissor for cutting the genes and reshuffling with the cells to get a healthy person.
Listening to this and trying to take us to a kind of a dimension of this knowledge navigation, which is a very, I understand, kind of fluid, moving target. We need to stay very alert.
Yep.
And what's happening and how to interpret and so on and so forth. So we said position, direction, and you were indicating as well that we are moving with 1,600 kilometers an hour.
Yep.
That talks about speed.
Yep.
So the third dimension of navigation is speed.
Yep.
So do you think that our speed today, if knowledge creation, are increasing or decreasing?
It depends on the subject. We have a tremendous flow of academical research coming in, and that is pretty high, actually.
Yeah.
And then you have the recycling of news in media. That is probably very little knowledge, but it's a grandiose flow from the various news agencies. And the big challenge is probably to pick out and understand what is the pattern of it. Because if you get that information, you don't need to be afraid.
Okay. You have to see new knowledge patterns
Yep.
and patterns of the coming future
Yep.
today.
Yep.
And that will give you probably more trust, self-confidence, and have a trust management. I learned, by the way, while being in Siena, that the word management comes from Siena and the horse racing industry. Literally, it means steering with the hands on the horse. That tells us about direction, and it also tells about relationship with the horse. So there's a hard side, direction, and there's a soft side, which is about relationships. So I remember that was you were working with a very well-known person. I think it was Paul Romer, and he talked about hardware and software, but he also talked about wetware and was it mindware? And can you elaborate on this, because I think this has to do with the speed in our thinking today.
Yeah, I can take another metaphor, not only Siena, but Volvo were developing a new gearbox many years ago, and the gearbox.
The former Swedish car producer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were not. They were looking for a way to shift gear in a kind of new situation. So they replaced the mechanical wheels in the gearbox with gel.
Gel. Oh.
And the gel, when it was heated up or cooled down, had the same kind of properties as the mechanical ones.
Wow.
And the weight was lower, the construction was quicker, etc. So you should have a gearbox with gel.
So is that what you're trying to say now is we need a new knowledge gel
Yep.
for making a better analysis
Yes.
of what is to come?
And that is the wetware.
That's the wetware. Okay, I got it. Let me then ask you about how we can think when it comes to the discussion of where we are going, and this, because I think the knowledge creation today is increasing a lot. We get 10,000s of new things on, or millions and trillions of new knowledge units on the internet every day. But so the price of knowledge is probably going down, but the price of wisdom is probably going up.
Yep.
How do we elaborate with these two things?
First of all, you have to have gray hair.
Gray hair. Tick the box.
Yes.
So that's you can you tick this box? That's a question. It
But
will be over time. It will be fixed, right?
So we need to have some kind of perspective.
Yeah.
And that is like shadow in the sunshine, that you measure actually the distance by the shade and the angle. And that might also be very interesting, because we have a fear for age in many societies of today. And consequently we miss the whole value of senior perspectives.
I think you have sometimes called this the silver potentials of the future.
Yes.
How do we really get into a culture and understanding and allowing these people to give what the great things they have learned into the next generation?
With what you are doing precisely right now.
Okay.
That's the space for the Oracy Lab.
All right. That's interesting. And I mean, I remember you and we were in Dubai. We worked with MBRF.
Yeah.
And they had a very fascinating vision about, it's about perspective is 7 generations. Have we maybe lost the perspective on future generations and learning between generations, like 3G, 3 generations coming together and learning? What's your comment?
Well, the most recent example I've seen is actually Singapore. They are developing future plans that goes 90 years forward. And then you can think about the traditional economics. They are operating on still quarters.
Yeah.
Last quarter report.
Last quarter report. So I mean, that's something.
Yes.
And also it's about changing focus on from history to future, but maybe also from finance to other values.
Excellent.
New dimensions of value creation.
Yeah.
Human capital, intellectual capital, cultural capital, political capital, democratic capitals, and environmental capital. So do you think that is a way to better navigate, to understand these other parameters, which maybe will create finance, not vice versa? What do you think?
One is the meaning of the word capital, and that is head value.
Head.
Most important value, or capitus in Latin. So therefore, could be financial capital, it could be human capital, it could be some other dimensions of head value. The most important value for next generation, what could that be?
So we're asking what are the head values of the future?
Yep.
We are sitting today in the capital of Sweden. It's Stockholm. So this tells me that the future is not only about finance. It's about a whole lot more. So if you would like to give a comment, what's the most important to think of from today going forward, being on the edge, as you said at the beginning? What is the most important thing for us, for our audience, to think about, for you and I as well?
To think about the future value creating dimensions for next generation.
Wow, future value creating dimensions for the next generation.
Yeah.
I think we thank you very much for coming, Leif, on board.
Pleasure.
On this journey on mental tennis,
yeah.
on the ship moving on the top of the waves, on the edge, hopefully. So we will come back to you with other interesting topics linked to knowledge and how to think and how to explore great ideas for the future. So thank you for listening, thank you for coming, and all the best to all of you. See you again. Take care.
Happy future.
Happy future.
Yes.